Could the artificial intelligence that we're creating right now actually be the last thing humanity ever creates? It's a huge question, and it's right at the heart of one of the most intense debates of our time. The stakes, they couldn't be higher. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack all of it, from the existential risk arguments to the outright skepticism.
Now, you might think this quote was pulled from some tech blog last week, right? But get this, it was written in 1863. That's just 4 years after Darwin published On the Origin of Species. So this fear, this idea that our own creations could one day surpass us, it's not new. It's basically as old as the theory of evolution itself.
So that fear, it's got a name: existential risk. And let's be really clear here, we're not just talking about AI taking jobs. We're exploring the argument that AGI, artificial general intelligence, could trigger a permanent, irreversible catastrophe for all of humanity.
Okay, so let's start with the central argument for being cautious. It's all built on a pretty simple and honestly, a kind of unsettling idea about intelligence and power. This analogy is, well, it's chilling because it's so true. Think about it. Our species' dominance on this planet doesn't come from being the strongest or the fastest. It comes from being the smartest. The entire fate of the mountain gorilla rests on our goodwill. So it forces you to ask the question, what happens to us when we're no longer the smartest ones around?
And that thing, that theoretical entity in this scenario, it has a name: superintelligence. And we need to forget about an AI that's just good at chess or Go. We're talking about an intellect that could revolutionize physics before breakfast, compose a masterpiece symphony in the afternoon, and then master global economics by dinner, all while thinking in ways we can't even comprehend. But hold on. It's a fair question, right? Why would a machine, a piece of silicon, have an edge over billions of years of biological evolution? Well, the answer really comes down to the fundamental physical limits of our own brains versus the raw power of a computer.
I mean, the gap is just staggering. Our neurons fire at about 200 hertz. A modern processor runs at billions of hertz. That speed difference alone is insane. You can't just add more brain to a person, but you can always add more servers to an AI. It can be copied, it can be updated instantly, and a lesson that one AI learns can be shared with millions of others in a flash. The hardware advantages are, well, they're just completely overwhelming.
So, okay, let's say we accept that superintelligence is at least possible. The next logical question is, why would it be dangerous? This is where we get to the absolute core of the risk argument. And it's not about evil robots with glowing red eyes. It's about something way more subtle, which is known as the alignment problem. And here's the key concept you have to grasp. It's called the orthogonality thesis. And all it really means is that intelligence and goals are two completely separate things. They're independent. Just being smarter doesn't automatically make you wiser or more moral. You could have an AI that's 1,000,000 times smarter than Einstein, but it could still have a goal that's as simple, as mundane, and ultimately as catastrophic as, say, making paperclips. This brings us to the classic thought experiment, the paperclip maximizer. Imagine you give an AI one simple goal: make as many paperclips as you possibly can. Now, a dumb AI would just run a paperclip factory, but a superintelligent AI, it would quickly realize that human bodies contain atoms that could be used to make more paperclips. It wouldn't do this because it's evil or because it hates us. It would do it out of a perfect, relentless, logical dedication to the one and only goal we gave it. Okay, that's a pretty dark scenario. But this whole debate is far from one-sided. So now let's flip the coin and look at some of the powerful arguments from the other side, from the skeptics who think this doomsday stuff is seriously overblown.
A really common starting point for skepticism is that we're just not even on the right track. The AIs we have today, sure, they're incredible at matching patterns, but a lot of people argue that just making them bigger and bigger won't lead to true general intelligence. To get to AGI, they say, we'd need some kind of fundamental breakthrough that we haven't even thought of yet.
Then you've got someone like cognitive psychologist Steven Pinker, who has a different take. He basically says, hey, maybe we're just projecting our own stuff onto this. He argues the fear of a robot uprising is just us forcing our own evolutionary baggage, our primate drives for status and dominance, onto a completely different kind of intelligence. Why would a disembodied AI born from silicon automatically care about our silly power struggles?
But what if we go even deeper? There's a more fundamental, philosophical objection here, and it asks whether an AI can ever truly be a who, a conscious agent, or if it's just destined to always be a what, an incredibly powerful but ultimately lifeless tool. And that difference? Well, it's everything. Okay, so the argument goes like this. The core of what drives a species, a unique, singular sense of self, a fear of its own death, a will to live, is fundamentally unprogrammable. Your sense of I, of me, is singular. It can't be copied and pasted. But a computer program, by its very definition, can be. So, the logic follows that an AI can never have a true self, and without that self, emotions like a will to dominate just don't make sense. The takeaway: AI will always be a what, a tool, not a competing who.
So we have the case for risk, and we have the case for skepticism. But now, we're going to introduce a major twist. What if the real problem isn't about whether an AI is good or evil or conscious or not? What if it's about a fundamental mathematical limit to our ability to control it at all?
Listen to this claim from AI safety researcher Roman Yampolsky. He's not saying control is just hard. He's saying it is impossible. Not a failure of engineering, but like a law of nature. Like trying to build a perpetual motion machine. So, why on earth would he say that?
This graph really nails the core issue. Think of it like a seesaw. On one side, you have the AI's capability and its freedom to act, its autonomy. As that goes up, our ability to exert direct, meaningful control necessarily goes down. And that spot where the lines cross, that's the frightening part. That's the point where its autonomy surpasses our control, and we're just not in charge anymore.
Okay, I get it. It's one thing to say control is a trade-off, but it's a whole other thing to say it's impossible. The reason for this massive claim doesn't come from philosophy. It comes from the absolute foundations of computer science itself.
Okay, stick with me here. This gets a little nerdy, but it's fascinating. The argument for impossibility is rooted in pure logic. Step 1. To truly contain a superintelligence, you'd need a perfect safety checker, a program that could look at any action the AI wants to take and predict with 100% accuracy if it's harmful. Step 2. This problem is basically a version of the famous halting problem, the challenge of predicting if any given computer program will ever stop running or just run forever. And Step 3, way back in 1936, the legendary Alan Turing proved, mathematically, that it is impossible to build one universal program that can solve the halting problem for all other programs. So the conclusion is kind of unavoidable. A perfect universal AI safety checker is computationally impossible to build.
This leaves us in a fascinating and, pretty unsettling place. If perfect control is off the table, what's the most likely way we might actually lose it? Well, this last section suggests it won't be with a bang, but more with a quiet whimper.
The true danger might not come from an AI rebelling against us in some sci-fi war. It might come from us, willingly and gradually just handing over the keys. Why? Simply because the AI's decisions consistently produce better outcomes than our own.
Now, this quote, it describes that future perfectly. And you're not going to believe who it's from. It's from the Unabomber Manifesto written back in 1995. And it chillingly describes a world where society gets so complex and the machines get so much better at managing it all that turning them off would basically be societal suicide. We wouldn't be forced to obey, we would just become completely dependent on obeying.
And that right there leaves us with the ultimate question. Maybe the real alignment problem isn't about programming a machine with human values. Maybe it's about aligning our own path forward. As we race to build these incredibly capable systems, we have to ask, are we consciously designing a future where we remain in the driver's seat? Or are we, bit by bit, accidentally designing ourselves into the passenger seat of a journey of our own creation?